What's up,
Morning,
man?
gents. Good. How are you? How's my
Doing
audio?
well. Yeah, you're good. Coming in loud and clear. How are we doing today?
Very well, thank you.
Chuck,
That's good. I
are you
like
worth
this
100
setup. Very
million?
legit. No, not
Are you
quite.
worth 100 million, do you think? You think you
I'm
can
waiting for
justify
that
a
Facebook. Waiting for that Facebook offer to come in. No, insane. I was just watching. Yeah, watching you guys talk about that. But crazy to think. I saw this tweet yesterday about. This is kind of related. It's like Facebook is the only product in the world you can spend $100,000 and not be able to get a customer support rep
yeah,
on the phone. Like these
right.
businesses, the amount of money that's
It's
churning through them is so ridiculous you can't even fathom it.
uh yeah, tangent there, but
One other
you'd be
thing.
really
One
off.
other thing. Figma's AWS bill. Did you guys see that? Because they had to file that
No.
S1. Their
What is it?
daily
What is it?
AWS bill is 300 Gs a day.
Yo.
So just the scale
God.
of the amount of money that's churning through these
Wow.
software companies, I think is hard to fathom. Crazy.
And it was crazy is that they have like 700 million in cash right now. They sort of like they're positive on burn since inception,
And a bunch of
mostly
Bitcoin, a bunch
because
of Bitcoin too, right? Did I see that?
they're trying to
100
buy
million
Bitcoin.
of
But I
Bitcoin.
think this
No,
is
they have
the
70 million of the ETFs, and they had permission to buy another 30 or something crazy.
yeah.
You'd love to see
Yeah,
it.
it's
Nice.
That's wild.
All right, well, let's get into it. So, Jack, you're a trained designer, worked in the agency scene in New York for, I don't know, decade or something, founder of Visualize
Mhm.
Value, which I was trying to find like a good description for, and I didn't. So maybe you'll have to give us that, or I couldn't. And then, creator of viral NFT projects, Checks and OPEPin. So I think the place I want to start is you're just like a great example of how I think modern artists need to think and are just operating in such a different way than, an artist like 50
Mhm.
years ago would. The stuff you create is very mimetic, create a ton of art and media versus kind of forcing scarcity. You're very like explicitly building network effects into your art. You want high accessibility versus high price sales, kind of all this stuff that is just signifying of the age we live in. So curious if you could just talk a bit about that strategy and how you approach creating art in the, social media
Sure.
internet age.
Yeah, thank you. The description thing I'm still working on, so I'm not surprised you couldn't find a good one.
I was like
That's
scrolling through the site. I'm like, how do I describe this? Like what?
What's funny is I think there's been like maybe that's like an inverted way to go about the explanation of it. Is like it's always been this like step ahead of where I've been trying to get to. So I started in the agency world, span off my own little agency projects a bunch of different times, and then finally got traction when I stuck to one thing, which was, hey, somebody has a complex product or service, and we sit down and turn that into 10 slides that explains this thing to someone they're selling it to, or someone that's working for them, or an investor, or whatever it might be. And that was where this first like inception of Visualize Value, the idea came from, like take something intangible, make it tangible. And then I started this daily practice of making these visuals on Instagram, Twitter, and sort of unlock this network effect by finding ideas that had been articulated by people that I admire or that I'd learned from, and like adding visual context to those ideas and then just tapping into the network effect of their audiences. So that was like a lot of people in technology, media, like it built this audience of people that were curious about the things I was curious about and sort of coasted off a lot of the network effects of people that were way ahead of me. And then all of this like Ethereum, NFT, digital art stuff sort of just converged with that as the catalyst for the first mint was actually somebody who had been a consumer of the Visualize Value stuff for years. Like, I really want to collect this stuff. And I'm like, it's really tricky to get white ink on black paper. And I've tried to do that before. It's a pain. I don't like shipping this stuff. He's like, no, you go and check out, have you heard of NFTs? I'm like, he sent me to OpenSea at the time. I go look at OpenSea. I'm like, what am I looking at here? I have no idea what this is. And this must have been, it's probably 2020. So it would have paid dividends for me to spend a little bit longer looking at that stuff. But I just dismissed it to begin with, and then eventually got invited to Foundation. You guys remember that 1-of-1 platform,
For
which
sure.
just immediately obvious to me what the value proposition was when I saw that. I was like, okay, yeah, digital version of auction house, place to put your work and all that stuff. And people who started collecting the early 1-of-1 stuff would reference like the Instagram or the network building or the, like, I used to share these stories of the like the analytics pages from some of those posts and how they sort of spread out. And I still stuck with the one of one stuff for probably 2 years after that point. And then in early 23 was when these two bigger, like what I would refer to now as these networked collections, Checks and Opepen, had this surface area or this canvas that was that much bigger than anything I'd done before. And there's that much more interest, like the response to every even alluding to what might come next in this, like what might be the next chapter in the story of Checks. The amount of attention that was just fixated on that is a function of the ownership thing, right? It's like people own the thing, they want to see it do something. A lot of that is tied to the idea that the value of the thing might increase, but also that connection that the ownership establishes just makes people pay attention at such a deeper level and for such a longer amount of time. And I think the timing of those was super lucky in that there wasn't that much else going on in crypto markets more broadly. It was pretty quiet. So I would get on Twitter every day, ramble 100 tweets a day about like the ideas behind these things. I was very fortunate to have like a captive audience for that amount of time. And that just totally changed my mind on the whole idea of supply, scarcity. The really scarce thing or the really difficult thing to build is something that means something that people care about. You have to pay like a good amount of attention, obviously, to just how many participants there are in this entire world. And if you go beyond the number of people that can like physically exist, and that's like your mechanics are not aware of that, you can obviously fall flat on your face that way. But it was a super iterative process based on how much attention there is, how many people are actually active in this thing. Both of those projects sort of evolved from these flat open edition, one of 16,000 into what are pretty complex and now even difficult to describe in retrospect. Like, thankfully, people were paying attention for all that time because they do a better job than me a lot of the time of explaining where it was and where it is now. But yeah, they feel to me like just way more engaging and interesting expressions of the medium itself. And it's quiet at times, but I have a massive amount of conviction that like that is by far the most fun, interesting thing that I've ever done on the internet by such a massive order of magnitude that it's very obvious to me that the world will catch up with that eventually.
I mean, I love fun as like a KPI or as like an indicator. But in your last answer there, you sort of, I guess, started off with this very iterative approach, but then the idea that there's some sort of max number of buyers here and that you would need to be sort of thoughtful about that for how you burn out your mechanism. Were you sort of actually doing math on that? Like, was there like a part of your work that was trying to get a sense of what the scale was so you could back into like a collection size or mechanism?
Yeah, I would say maybe not exact formula, but you can get a sense for things like Opepen, the release mechanism on that is like it started by needing 10 times the demand for the sets that existed. And it blew past that early on. But then you think like, okay, this is like mathematically unsustainable over time, but also it has to sit at this level where it can function when there's loads of attention and not as much attention, and sort of move in and out of this. And the scarcity component does play a role. It's like if you just made this infinite, people would just lose interest in it, right? But there's this like play between, in both of them, they have like kind of different mechanisms. Checks has this like very deterministic supply goes down slowly, and people discover it and like interact with it heavily for a period of time. And then Opepen has a similar mechanic, but there's way more inputs. So like crowdsourced, people are submitting all these different interpretations and actually like building their own network effects around the like events that are occurring alongside these set releases. One thing we did recently is made it possible for as many artists as you want to contribute to a single set. So what was like a single player game for a reasonable amount of time, up to I think 60 of 200 releases, is now possible for you to like recruit people to come and work on a set. And what that does obviously lowers the burden of like how much work there is to do it, but it also has this like massive second order effect of everybody that works on it is promoting it, talking about it, explaining their contribution. And it's things like that that are even iterative as well, where like, oh, we're kind of running into a wall of how much energy it is for a single person to come in and do 80 pieces to get this released. How can we keep the structure of the mechanism, but use like the network in a smarter way to get more contributions and more people talking about it? And yeah, I do think it was sort of reverse engineered based on the demand for the open edition too, which is why I love open edition so much, because they have like snapshot in time of how many people are paying attention to this. You're not picking an arbitrary number and then hoping people show up. You're reverse engineering it based on what the market already told you. So I think there was a lot learned in that process. And yeah, if I were to, you also just have this, like, I'm sure you guys have this similar sense of just like, what is like, what's appropriate at any given time, or what the appetite is for anything at any given time. And there's obviously surprises that occur along the way, but you have to be, I like advocate for building network effects, getting as much surface area out there as possible, but thoughtfully. You know, there's like ways in which you can keep people's attention on the stuff you released. That takes a lot of work too.
Yes, you've mentioned kind of the novel mechanics that existed in Chex and No Pepin. I think Chex was kind of this supply burning game to get rare pieces, and then No Pepin was kind of this community curation game. So I'm curious. So like obviously the space has changed a lot in the last 3 years. We have all these new mechanics, types of tokens people like playing with. I'm curious, like as you look forward, I imagine you're always thinking about what the next thing is going to be. Like, what mechanics are kind of capturing your imagination today?
There's so many ideas I have around the fungible stuff, where I'm like, oh, there could be something like you bring liquidity to these things, you bring like tons and tons and tons of people to interact with them as a function of that. And I've spent, as long as these things have existed, a long time thinking about that. And the space kind of opened up, maybe 2 years ago or 18 months ago. You wouldn't want to boldly declare that was going to be your strategy based on the environment, but now maybe there's more openness to that. And I still think that there's almost like these behaviors that exist alongside these tokens that are basically, it doesn't matter how you intend to frame it, the market is going to treat it a certain way. And I'm like gaming it out. Okay, if I made this for the people that love this stuff, they would act a certain way. And then the people who just see it as an instrument to exploit would basically, I'm trying to think of ways which to use like an instrument like that doesn't end up with the people that believe in the work the most getting hosed, basically. So that's been one of the big like backburning themes. And then I think I still have massive amount of conviction in these like singular, like relationships to a singular token, or like the ownership of a unique object still to me feels like massively like that was such an inflection point in my creative practice that I'm still almost exclusively focused on that idea. And I think there's going to be more interesting ways to do that, and things get faster and there's different ways to move those things around. But for the most part, not looking that far beyond that, as like that's been the thing that has completely changed the way I work, and been like, I couldn't have hoped for a better result over the last couple of years operating in that frame. But I think through everything that arrives, and just takes a long time to, in a certain position, it's like you can't experiment. You know what I'm saying? Like there's
I mean,
when you start now, you can run these experiments, and like people are going to speculate like crazy. So you have to get it right.
I love that. I mean, before we let you go, I'm very curious. What is your take on the NFT market right now? And is even that the right way to look at it?
You know, what I think it's funny is like if you're really close to it, it feels like it feels good to me. Like it feels like the people who have are so close to this and have had opportunities to completely leave it behind have not. And like even if you look at these numbers, we shipped this product a few weeks ago, which is just a terminal that shows all the volume on visualized value collections every day. And this thing still does like 20, 30, 40 ETH every day. And there's like tons of people in that ecosystem that are, you know, I would say there's more conviction in that world than there was a couple of years ago, because the people that were participating then was just pure like, this is the game that's happening right now. What's the next game? And it's much smaller, but it's much more, it's just so cliche. It just feels like the people who have stuck with it this amount of time have a level of they're so irrational, like completely irrational. You could have been making more money in like a different area of this thing. You could have speculated on this thing that goes faster, has more participants. But there's a lot of people that aren't, and I say a lot, it's a few hundred. And my belief is just that there's something so fundamentally interesting about this stuff, and the like tide will wash in and out on these like instruments that people have no real like long-term connection to or like relationship to, and people will arrive back at this stuff. I have massive amount of conviction in it. It's that's I would say most people now are approaching it from this like pure curiosity, pure like what does this mean, what you're trying to say, rather than did you see how much volume Collection X did yesterday? We have to, this new mint is coming out, jump on it. So yeah, it's I think it's good. It's healthy, if small, but healthy.
We like conviction. It's important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess, sorry, that was like a bit of a messy answer, but I would say like the vast majority of people that are buying NFTs now want them. Would be the TLDR.
Pretty novel
Simple as
concept.
that.
I love that actually. It's just that's a great line. Because you know, like, and I think that we can apply that to other tokens as well, right? It's like if we look at the sort of meme coins happening right now, do people really want them? I mean, I think there are. Maybe that's the good way of
there's examples,
determining whether it's a good meme, right? Yeah, love it. All right, Jack, we gotta let you go here, man.
It's a great place to build from. Thanks for having me on.
Love it, man. Big fan of, and we've watched your work very closely, and it's wonderful to finally get to chat with you. So, I wish you great success in everything you do going forward, and hopefully we'll chat with you soon.
Thank you, gents. You as well. Appreciate it.
Peace, man.
Cheers, Jack.